What's up, guys? My name is PJ, and on my channel, I talk about different ways that we can connect more and more to our true self. Today's topic doesn't necessarily have to do with connecting our true self or more of the spiritual topics that I discuss on my channel, but nonetheless, I have found this to be absolutely life-changing. This thing that I'm going to talk about today, the creation of systems, totally transformed my life and my view of myself and my own estimation of myself when it comes to my ability to accomplish things. I started seeing myself as someone who can actually set a goal and bring it into life and actually follow through towards the accomplishment of that goal. And it really boosted my self esteem in so many different ways. And I believe this very simple tool, or I don't even know if you can call it a tool, but just like a mindset, really. The simple mindset of changing goals to systems can absolutely transform your life. So I'm going to today talk about a little bit about my own journey of how I came to understand systems, how I started seeing their value, and how I ultimately started applying them and implementing them into my life. So a few years ago, when I was really I had started my first, big boy job, so to speak, and I wanted to learn about finances. I bought this book called I Will Teach You to Be Rich by Ramit Sethi, and he introduced a very simple system for managing your finances. Basically, I got it straight from the book, applied it to my income, to my circumstances, and I set that system in place. And I remember it took maybe like an hour or maybe like less than that, maybe 30 minutes to set up. And then it started running on autopilot. So my money would come in from my job, and then it would go through other accounts of mine that I had set up based on what the book recommended. I literally implemented the system as he taught it exactly. So the money would come in automatically, it would get transferred to all other places. I would already remove my fixed expenses. I would, transfer money to my other account for just, you know, eating out, stuff like that. And everything was already just automatic and calculated, and it would just get done repeatedly. And it freed me up from constantly having to think about money and like if I'm managing it correctly, if I'm putting the right amount aside for bills and stuff like that. All of it became automatic, and I was just blown away by this system framework, this tool that I started using and implementing into my life, and just seeing it absolutely transform my life and really free up so much storage in my mind because it was all just automatically and systematically happening, so I didn't have to consciously think about every single thing all the time. So it freed me up. And then I also started looking back at my life, and I noticed that my best and biggest accomplishments, whether it was losing weight, building muscle, things like that, that for me were massive personal accomplishments, every single one of them involved a system that I trusted, that was proven to work, and that I used day in and day out. And that's pretty much every time I got really good results in my life, I was using some sort of system. And you would think just from using systems like that, I would have realized their power, but something had not clicked yet for me. And I don't know why, but I know that I knew about myself that I'm really good at building habits. Like, for example, I could just like decide to meditate and then meditate every day going forward. One day I just decided that I'm going to start meditating every day 5 years ago, and I haven't skipped a day. And this is not to pat my back. I really think I'm addicted to rituals and routine, and I'm a creature of habit and routine big time. Like if you leave me to my own devices, I would do the same exact thing every day. Like my life sometimes looks like Groundhog's Day, but I love it. I love the fact that I have the same morning routine every day. I love that structure. But when it came to goal setting and success and self-development and things like that, they talk about goal setting a lot in those circles, in those books. They're like, set a goal, set a massive goal, take massive action, and go after it. And that's just really the mentality that you hear a lot when it comes to like self-help books and stuff like that. And I would try to follow that. I would try to amp myself up, I would get motivated about something, and I would have this burning desire, this burning passion to go accomplish it. And I would try to jam this new thing, this new habit or goal into my existing life framework. And I would keep it up. I would force myself, I would grind, I would hustle, I would keep that up for maybe 3-4 months. And then ultimately I would like stop because it wasn't naturally fitting into my lifestyle. And I feel like nothing that fits into your lifestyle, like truly becomes a part of your life, is not going to allow, if it doesn't become like that, it won't allow you to actually follow it all the way through towards its attainment, at least not for me. So basically, I was just like, I knew, and it was really bad for my self esteem because I would set these goals and then I would recap. And I was like, what happened? Like, when did I stop? I wouldn't even be able to like to keep track of when I fell off the wagon, so to speak. But I read that book again, I Will Teach You to Be Rich, when the 10th year anniversary edition came out back in 2019, I believe. So I got it. I wanted to see the updated material. I read it, and it started reminding me of the power of systems. And simultaneously, I was reading another book called Will It Fly by Pat Flynn. It's about when you have a business idea, testing it to make sure it's actually going to work before you actually end up launching that business, executing and bringing it into life. It's about different ways that you can basically test your idea. But I bought that book and I had the I Will Teach You to Be Rich, and I was reading these two pretty much simultaneously. And in that other book, Will It Fly, Pat Flynn had a lot of different frameworks, a lot of different systems or different ways to think about problems that were very systematic. And Ramit Sethi, also the author of I Will Teach You to Be Rich, he's a very systematic kind of thinker. And those two people, influencing me simultaneously with their systems thinking, ultimately it made something click. I remember when it was like the light bulb went on in my head and I was like, oh my God, I'm good when I have a system. I don't know how I never saw that, but I would always, buy a workout program or buy a system that's in a book or buy a course to have these frameworks help me and teach me. And basically, I was always outsourcing somebody else giving me a system, which there's nothing wrong with that, but not for every single one of your goals. There's not necessarily a system that's already in a box that somebody can give you. For some of your goals, you have to figure out the system for yourself. So when this realization occurred to me that I thrive when I have a good system in place that repeats consistently, then I started setting out to turn all my goals that I had into systems. And now I'm going to jump into the second section of the video, which is all about how to turn your goals into systems. So the first point, is very clear. First, you have to actually get clear about what you want. What are your goals? And for me, I would say that I personally lacked clarity in this area for a long time. And it was easier, and this might be the case for you, it was easier for me to have an understanding and be clear about what I do not want in order to get clear about what I do want. And I think a lot of people may go through this where they are more clear about what they don't want than what they do want. And I think that's a good first place to start. You can journal on, hey, I really hate this thing in my life. I really dislike this circumstance. I really dislike this. And then figure out the opposites of those to get clear about what you want. Because that contrast is always teaching us what our true desires are. So that's just something to keep in mind when you're thinking about your goals and trying to figure out what you really want. What is your heart's desires? And then the second thing is, and this is something I learned from that book, these books, the names are so similar, Will It Fly? I learned this framework that was super simple. Basically, it was to get a sheet of paper, just a normal, sheet of letter size paper, and then fold it into 4 quadrants. Or you can just draw a line, equally. into 4 equal quadrants on this paper. And then on one, on each of them, so on one, you can write family, on another one, you can write relationships, on another one, you can write finances, and on another one, at the top of these quadrants, and you can write, another goal for you like health or area of life to focus on. And I basically just got that. Pat Flynn has a course that's actually free that's supposed to be a companion for that book, Will It Fly? And I found that as a downloadable PDF on that website. I'll link it in the description. You can go access his course even if you haven't bought the book necessarily. But in one of the modules, he talks about that. So basically, I just turned the paper into 4 quadrants, and because there's not enough size, it helps you focus and get very concise about what do you want. And for me, for each of those areas, I just listed like 3 simple bullet points. When it came to like finances, 3 simple bullet points, 3 goals that I have, desires, wishes, wants that I have. And I wrote them all down. And what was awesome is that you just have this paper that you can just look at. You don't have to go through multiple pages. You can just look at it and all your goals are on just one page. I think it was really powerful for me to see it all right there in that one page, because it just focuses your attention, and that's very important when it comes to accomplishing any goal. So now that we're clear about these goals, let's go ahead and talk about how I personally turn them into systems that help me actually accomplish them. And I'm not saying I haven't really the way I'm going to go about it is just my way of going about it. I think it's very important to find what works for you, but what I'm going to suggest is not from necessarily a book or anything like that. It's just what I found helps me turn my goals into systems. So, I highly recommend that you always tune into yourself and, be present, be still, and really check in with yourself to see if what I'm saying or what somebody's suggesting you do actually aligns with what you feel would be the best path for you to take, because that's something I lacked. I always looked outside myself for somebody else to give me a system, a framework that works. And ultimately I realized that's actually really disempowering, because it's like somebody always has to hold my hand. Like it's like I don't trust myself to be able to figure it out on my own. But just having that change in mindset really helped me that like, hey, you can do it. You have the capacity to figure it out on your own. So anyways, that's just another topic for another day, but I'm really passionate about that. So let's go into how to turn these goals that you just figured out turn them into systems and put them into a systems thinking kind of framework. So the first thing that I do is, one of my goals personally is I want to be successful on YouTube. And for me, that looks like, getting more subscribers, getting more views, maybe, getting monetized, and all those things, whatever, success on YouTube. Maybe I should get more clear about that. But basically for me, when I'm clear about that goal, that's just an example, it could be like lose weight or whatever your goal may be. I then think, okay, now that I have this goal, what action, if repeated, would bring me would attain this goal for me, would help me accomplish this objective that I have. And when it comes to YouTube, for example, I believe if I put out videos consistently and I try to make the best content that I can and constantly aim to improve that, that will lead me to my goal. So now that I know that putting videos out consistently is the action that's going to get me to my goal, then I think about what are all the steps, every single step that is involved in making that action, making videos consistently. And so I write them all down. So for me, it could be like, first thing, figure out a video topic, then make an outline, then shoot the video, then edit, color grade, edit the sound, edit the whole video, export it, upload it, make a thumbnail, make a title, write a description, add keywords, all those things that go into a video, every single step. I try to be as clear as I can about every single step. Then what I do, now that I'm very clear about these steps, I basically get a calendar, and I actually like to just get 2 sheets of paper. On one, I like to just write all the days and separate them by line. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and separate them by line on one page, and I just put that there. And I put the other page next to it with all the tasks, every single one on there, that if accomplished consistently would help me accomplish my goal. Then I get these tasks that I just wrote down, and I start plugging them in order into my calendar. So for example, it could look like, I'm just actually going to go based on what I now use. Like today, when I'm shooting this video, is Friday. I try to make the outline on Thursday ideally, so I plug that in. Figure out the topic, make an outline. Thursday, I put that in there. Then shoot the video, it's Friday. Next thing is, color grade or color grade and edit the sound a little bit. That's Saturday. If I get to it, ideally I start editing the whole video also on Saturday. And then, next action was edit the whole video and export it. So I put those in on Sunday. On Monday, I put, I just keep on going. So I have my list. I'm going down the list in order. I'm putting them into the calendar. And you can really easily also use like Google Calendar or any other digital calendar, because it's really easy to drag and drop. For me, the actual act of writing it down and having it on a sheet of paper, it helps me, because sometimes I feel like when you're using a digital app, for me, it feels like it has to be perfect, whereas I always feel like I can just like scratch it off on a paper. I don't know, it's just like, it makes me feel like I can edit more and I don't have to get it perfect immediately. I can just work on it. So for me, I like to write it on paper. I'm old school like that. But, again, figure out what works best for you and do that. But basically, I just start plugging them into the calendar. And then there you go. You have it. I have my first system, all the way from, the genesis of every single video to, posting them. There are all these steps. I put them into a calendar. Now I have a framework that repeats. Every Thursday, I'm going to start outlining a video. Every Friday, I'm going to shoot the video. Every, Saturday, I'm going to edit it, color grade it, all those things. So all those steps, getting clear about them now, help me craft that system. Now, at this point, I'm going to start using this system and tweaking it in whatever way I need to. I mean, already, from using a system like this, I've learned that for me, certain tasks take longer. Like, sometimes I run into issues with my editing program and it won't export, or it doesn't do something. So my exporting day may get pushed, pushed back like by a day. And stuff like that happens. So we have to also be lenient to some extent with ourselves, because sometimes I think when we start setting these systems, and actually my last point in this video talks about this in depth, because I believe this is just as important as any conversation we have on systems. But I think sometimes we have this expectation when we start making these systems that we want to be robotic, and we want to be non-human and like not have anything come up that's going to throw off our system. Trying to just be robotic. Like, for example, like if I'm going to shoot the video, even if I'm dying, I'm going to shoot it. And I get that there's a time and place for that. And like books like The War of Art really talk about that, because sometimes there is actual resistance and fear in disguise that's trying to prevent us from doing our work, doing what, going and accomplishing our goals, doing what we need to do. But sometimes it's just, maybe it's something else. Maybe we actually need to take a day off and rest and rejuvenate and so on and so forth. If you take a day off every week now, maybe, that's not the best thing. But we have to have that flexibility with any system. I think that's very important. So basically, when you start executing on the system, you want to start, you will start noticing what part of it works and what part of it doesn't. For me, I've noticed actually giving 2 days for editing is a lot more reflective of the reality of it. Like I try to get the edit done in 1 day, it just won't work, or it would not be to the quality that I would like it to be because I'm rushing, I'm trying to stick to the system. So system is important, but the system is a guardrail that's trying to guide your actions and your efforts towards a destination, towards a certain outcome that you have in mind. But like I said, it's a guardrail, and within that guardrail, you want to have leniency, you want to have some freedom, because otherwise, I found that too strict of the system leads to burnout and leads to kind of makes you hate life when you're too strict with that. So I just recommend that again, you find what works for you. Every person has a different temperament. For me, it helps to have a clear system, but also have leniency and wiggle room within that system so I don't burn myself out. So my last point in this video, which I believe is a super important point that is often not discussed in conversations about productivity, success, accomplishing your goals, things like that. And this is more of a topic that you would hear more about in discussions about the law of attraction, or, you know, how can I say, more like woo-woo stuff and not so much like clear-cut, hard and fast business rules and stuff like that. It's more, this is just from my experience. I believe you need both of these. So, we want to have the conversation about the business, the productivity, the success rules, things like that. But I think this element that I'm going to talk about is very important. And like I said, it's more discussed in conversations about the law of attraction, spirituality, and things like that. And you may think it's kind of hippy dippy or a little bit woo woo, but I believe it's as equally important as any awesome system that we just created. So let's talk about it. I believe that the state that you're coming from when you're doing something is as equally important, if not more, than what you're doing. Now, I believe that what is massively important, don't get me wrong, we just talked about the steps you want to take, we were very clear about the what and what, steps are important to accomplishing our goals and things like that. So the what is massively important. And there were times in my life that I wasn't clear about that. But I believe the how and the place that we're coming from inside ourselves when we're doing that is infinitely important as well. And this is something that Eckhart Tolle, if you've ever read his books, The Power of Now or The New Earth, he talks about this. There's a chapter in the book, The New Earth. He talks about this concept that I'm talking about here. He says the 3 awakened modes of doing. He says these 3 states are the states that you want to be in when you're doing anything in order to have the highest effect. And he says those 3 states are acceptance. So these are more like an either situation. You're either in acceptance, or you're in enjoyment, or you're in enthusiasm. Is what those are the 3 modalities of awakened doing, as he calls it. So again, there were acceptance, enjoyment, and enthusiasm. When he's talking about acceptance, is like ideally you want to be in acceptance and not in resistance to what you're doing. So if you can't enjoy it and if you can't be enthusiastic about it, at least be in acceptance towards what you're doing. The second one is very clear, you're enjoying what you're doing. And when he's talking about enthusiasm, what he's talking about is directing the energy of acceptance or enjoyment towards a long-term goal, which goes back to a system. It's like being in acceptance or enthusiasm through every single, in acceptance or in enjoyment through every single step of the whole system. And Otherwise, one thing that he says, and I'm only talking about what he says because I've found it to actually be very true in my own experience. When you're coming from a different state, a negative lower vibration, and what I'm talking about, you can really clearly see this is called the map of the levels of consciousness by Dr. David R. Hawkins. He introduced it to the world in a book called Power versus Force that came out in 1995. But basically, as you can see, all emotions, all vibrations, all levels of consciousness underneath 200 are destructive. They are anti-life. They take energy versus give energy. 200 is the critical point. It shifts. It goes from force, that energy of taking, that energy of competition, and it changes to collaboration. It changes to life-giving energy. It changes to expansive energy versus destructive energy. And over to 200 and above is where what's called the paradigm shift. You truly change. The people who make that jump, or you've probably experienced it too. I've experienced it where I was in a lot of anger. And maybe the anger subsided. I highly recommend that you check out a video I have on one of Dr. Hawkins' books called Letting Go, and this video is about the letting go technique. I'll tag them up there. You can go check them out. The book and the video. I think it's super important to learn how to handle our emotions in the best way possible. And this letting go technique that Dr. David R. Hawkins teaches and taught in the Letting Go book, I think are super crucial and important. And the best way I have found when it comes to handling emotions. But going back to the map of the levels of consciousness, you've probably had an experience where you had maybe anger or sadness or fear. And, one way or another, you make that leap, you made that jump. Maybe you start meditating. Maybe you started, doing something that changes your vibration, as Tony Robbins would say, changes your state. Maybe you start going to therapy and start working with, on some of the deep traumas that are in your system, and you start resolving them. You start clearing them. You start doing things like shadow work, things like meditation, prayer, journaling. You start forgiving those who you need to forgive. Maybe you took yourself through the 12 steps, that are taught in 12-step program of Alcoholics Anonymous and all the other alcoholic, or not alcoholic, but all the other anonymous kind of groups that are out there. So in different ways, maybe you start going outside, getting some fresh air, taking a bath, whatever you needed to do, a good workout, and you change your state. And you've noticed how it's like the way and the lens that you were seeing the world when you were underneath 200 completely shifts. It's like before that, you're against other people. It's me against them. It's me against the world. It's separation existence, separation reality. Above 200, you literally experience a more collaborative state of being. Like, you want to help, you want to work with people, you want to think more in holistic ways of considering the other people, the other elements involved. And it's like, it literally is such a massive and noticeable and truly experiential shift that you will experience within yourself if, and I'm sure you have experienced that jump from underneath 200 to over 200. So the vibe, your vibration, when you say the word vibe, it just sounds so hippy dippy, but this is very subjectively and experientially valid. You can validate this for yourself. You can put it into practice and see the truth of it, the validity of it. So let's say you're in a really low vibrational state. You're in a very bad, you're really angry, you're really pissed off, you're really sad, you're really fearful about something. And you're trying to do your steps of your system that you've just put in place. And you're really forcing it, you're really fighting it. I will recommend that it's better to change your vibe first and then come and do what you need to do. Because whatever you do from that negative state of being will infuse all your actions with that vibration, and the results that you like. This is very results focused. I'm not just going into this hippy dippy realm without thinking about the results, and it's just like it's not about that. Like, no, I'm thinking very much about the results, and because this very much affects the results. When you're doing something from the negative vibration, you're infusing everything and you're actually hindering your results. I found this to be true when I'm like really pushing something, and it's just I'm in a horrible state vibration internally and I'm trying to make something happen. Like, yes, I may be able to push through it and do a lot, but I've found that like my actions have ripple effects that I did not estimate before and understand, or see, that are actually negative in nature. So yes, maybe I was feeling really guilty and being very down on this chart, and like started just pushing through and just white knuckling it and just getting it done, but it backfires on me. So I have found, and Eckhart Tolle says this too, the how is more important than the what. And basically what he's talking about is like, if you're doing something, be very present with that thing that you're doing. If you're editing a video, if you're working out, if you're whatever, you're making a system, you're working on that. Be very present in that process. Be in this moment, be in a state of acceptance, enjoyment, or enthusiasm, or these higher vibrations. And I believe that you can change your state. The letting go technique I talked about earlier in that video, the video I shared with you, I'll put it up there. That letting go technique is very helpful. Some other books that I think are very helpful. I've already mentioned The New Earth. I've already mentioned the Letting Go book by Dr. David R. Hawkins. The subtitle is The Pathway of Surrender. And another book that I think is very helpful in this is called The Astonishing Power of Emotions by Esther Hicks and Jerry Hicks. And yeah, I think those would be good books to just understand more, and dive more deeply into what I'm really addressing in this video. So the reason in this final section of the video I wanted to go so deeply into getting your state right, your internal vibration right, and doing whatever you do from those three modes of being: acceptance, enjoyment, or enthusiasm, is because I truly believe that your actions, if they come from those destructive levels of consciousness, they will have destructive consequences, even if those consequences are not seen right now. Now, there is a flip side to this conversation, and I think that's as equally important, and this is where your own internal discernment and honesty comes in with yourself, so you're not BSing yourself, and you're like, well, I'm just gonna give my vibe right, but in reality, you're just afraid of actually doing something that you need to do that's uncomfortable, and it's gonna help you grow, but you need to do it, and you need to face that. So this takes time to really understand, get clear about that. But there, on the flip side of this are books like The War of Art, Do the Work. These are all by Steven Pressfield. Turning Pro. All these books by Steven Pressfield. I think his books, when it comes to this, not BSing ourselves, when it comes to doing creative work or any sort of endeavor that seeks to make us grow and make us better, his books are phenomenal at like the times that we have to actually push through that. But other than that, I think getting the vibe right is so crucial, and that's why I wanted to dedicate so much time to it. And the reason I wanted to bring it into the video in the first place is because I really like to always take into consideration a whole view of the human, of ourselves. Mind, body, spirit, and emotions. I think those are kind of like the four main quadrants, going back to those four quadrants, that make up a human being. So when we're talking about something like systems, setting a goal, figuring out what you want, going after it, getting clear about the steps that you need to take, putting that into system, that's more of a mind thing in my estimation. But bringing the whole of the human in, the emotions, the body, like if your body is out of homeostasis, if your body is holding on to a lot of trauma, there's a great book called The Body Keeps the Score, which I actually haven't read, I'm going to be honest, but I know kind of what it talks about. And it talks about how our body keeps score of all these traumas that we've had. If your body's out of homeostasis, if your emotions are out of whack, maybe you need to face some stuff. And Jordan Peterson, his new book called has a rule that just hearing that rule is just so good. He says, "Do not hide unwanted things in the fog." And basically, like, there are things that we need to address, the emotional blocks and emotional traumas that we haven't addressed. So all these things, thinking in terms of the whole human, is very important to accomplishing our goals, to our success, to all these things that we want. Like, of course, we want to be productive, but I think any conversation about productivity, about success, about accomplishing your goals, without taking into consideration the whole human, is very, very incomplete. And I'm only saying this out of my own experience, not because somebody said, oh, this is the, no. Like, in my experience, I've had times where I've had, I was very in touch with the spirit and I was just flowing and meditating all the time, but I had no systems, no structure, no goals, and that was incomplete. Like, I was all spirit, no mind, no, I'm not even a body. It's like I was just too far in that direction. And I tend to go to these extremes sometimes, but I feel like I learn and constantly trying to find my balance. But basically, that was incomplete. Then I went into a phase where I was all about productivity, all about systems, all about grinding and hustling and goals. And that also led me to burnout and feeling very empty. But when I combined all of them, getting in touch with my spirit, meditating, praying, getting close to God, all the different topics that I talk about in my different videos, Enneagram, helping understand myself better, my psychology better, getting into psychology books like Boundaries, reading about codependency, all these things, body, exercise, eating well, reading books about, health from other perspectives, like reading books like You Are the Placebo, getting into Joe Dispenza's material, all these things, really taking into consideration my whole being. That's when it really started shifting things in my life. It transformed me. When I was just pushing it in one side or pushing it in one side, all about spirituality, all about success, all about this, all about body, all about, like, none of them were complete by themselves. But when you combine them, when you create synthesis, you create integrity, you create wholeness. And a structure that has integrity, a structure that is whole, is the structure that's going to be solid. And we want to create solid lives. It's like there's a saying by Jesus in the Bible that you don't want to build a house on a foundation of sand, because that's not going to stand. So if you build a great system that takes into consideration all the right steps, but doesn't take into consideration dealing with your emotions, changing your state, your vibration, your spiritual connection, your true heart's desires, then, or your body, the health of your body, you can have the best system, but if your body is out of whack, if you're not taking care of the body and you don't have the energy to carry out the steps that you need to carry out in that system, then you're not going to be able to be as productive as you like and accomplish the results that you want to accomplish. So this last part of this video, although may seem very out there and woo-woo, it's very much practical and results focused. When we take into consideration the wholeness of ourselves, we start having more integrity and we start having more success and happiness and joy and peace, because we are in alignment. Our mind, body, and soul are in alignment. It's not like we're trying to do something, accomplish a goal that is out of touch with our heart, that is out of touch with our spirit. And it's that alignment that brings fulfillment. And I believe at the end of the day, you're not going to be on your deathbed and think about all the steps in your system that you accomplish. You're going to think about the alignment of your purpose and your mission and your goals and your connections. And that wholeness of our being is what we're going to think about. So anyways, I know that this last part of the video maybe made you hate me or love me, but you may have thought that it was irrelevant, or you may have thought like, yes, bravo, that's exactly what we need to hear. Either way, I just felt like it would be out of integrity for me to make a video on systems and keep this super, super crucial part out. So I hope that you enjoyed this video for what it was, and I hope that you check out those videos I recommended, because the letting go video that I've made is my most popular video so far. And I believe it's because the tool I'm talking about is very powerful, and that I discussed in that video is very powerful and life-changing and transformative. And I'm super glad that has become my most popular video so far. So I highly recommend you check that out. If you enjoyed this video, please like it. That shows me that you enjoy this type of content. If you want to see more videos from me, please subscribe to my channel, because YouTube helps you see channels that you're subscribed to more on your homepage. So it will help my videos show up in your homepage more often and more frequently. And lastly, all the links, all the things I mentioned, resources, books, the links to them are all in the description, plus the link to my newsletter. So if you want to receive content from me in written format, please subscribe to my newsletter as well. But that is all for this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you find it helpful. And I will see you, hopefully, in the next video. Thank you.